All right. How are you guys doing today? This is Jess Washington, COO of the Dallas Weekly, and we are joined here today with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, representing the 30th Congressional District of Texas. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining Dallas Weekly today.
Listen, Jess, I love you for like 20 million reasons. One is because you are about this prophesying life. So I'm just going to clarify so that I don't get beat down by anybody. That I am currently still serving in my role as state representative for House District 100. And once I do get past these 4 opponents on November 8th, I fully anticipate I'll be able to swear in as the Congresswoman for Congressional District 30 in January.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
But nevertheless, that's his life, Jess. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And, nonetheless, like you said, thank you for joining us today because, what I thought was really important. First of all, let me just start with why we brought you here today. We all woke up on Friday, like this past Friday morning, to the news that the Supreme Court had overturned Roe v. Wade. And so when I saw that news, I knew that, as the Dallas Weekly, we are always here to let our audience know what's going on. And I wanted to know directly from certain perspectives what this exactly means. So we had earlier last week talked to an attorney. We also talked to a service provider that gave services to women in reproductive services. And then I specifically wanted to talk to you, not only because you always represent us, but also because as a politician, you can give us some insight as to the law and like exactly how we need to look at this and just any questions that, some people may have had. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you today about. So let's just dive right on into it. First and foremost, I wanted to talk about the Roe v. Wade overturn. What does that mean exactly for women in Texas and across the nation? Can you give us some insight to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, many of y'all probably are somewhere near my age. And so we weren't around to actually know a lot about the backstory on Roe v. Wade firsthand. Roe v. Wade is actually a Dallas case that ended up in the Supreme Court. And so it's kind of sad that, in my opinion, Texas was one of the leading states in kind of chipping away at this most fundamental right that was interpreted by Roe v. Wade. And so back in the day, Henry Wade was a district attorney in Dallas County. And the reason that I'm bringing up the fact that he was a DA is because our DAs are going to play a huge role going forward. So as we are making decisions about who should serve in that capacity, we have to now start asking the question of, do you believe in a woman's right to choose? Because if a person is elected DA, they will have the power to actually prosecute women and or doctors as it relates to them going to prison as it relates to a potential abortion. So this Wade case was all about Henry Wade, this DA who went after a woman. And basically the Supreme Court back 49 years ago specifically said, hey, as we read the Constitution and interpret it, we absolutely have determined that there is a right to privacy that exists that is granted by the U.S. Constitution. There was no law per se on the books that said that a woman had a right to an abortion. Instead, what courts are charged with doing is interpreting the laws as they are written, the laws and or the constitutions. And so the Supreme Court back then said, hey, we believe that there is a right to privacy. With the overturning of Roe, people need to understand that they are now saying, hey, we don't know that there really is a right to privacy as it relates to the Constitution. And so what you need to know is that, like, listen, we're talking about the general principle of right to privacy now, right?
Right.
Not just as it relates to a woman making a decision about her body. And so that's why you see in the opinion, Clarence Thomas, I got some other words for him, but anyway, that's why you see him saying things like, we got to revisit, these gay people and what they be doing, right?
Right.
We're going to challenge whether or not there's a right to privacy, I guess in the bedroom in general. And so we're really living in some scary times where I feel like when we watch Handmaid's Tale, we're like, oh, that's fairy tale, that's crazy, this is kind of juicy to watch. And I feel like some of these justices have been watching it like, you know what, that wouldn't be a bad situation.
Right.
And so they're trying to turn back the hands of time.
Oh yeah, like you said, it's crazy when you watch things that are happening on TV come to reality. But I want to swing real quick as to like one thing that we're very passionate about at the Dallas Weekly is civic knowledge and civic duty. So I want to talk a little bit about voting. Can you share the importance of civic duty and voting in every election, specifically talking about the importance, especially right now, of knowing who is representing you in your neighborhood, in your district, in your state? Can we speak on that?
Oh my gosh. We've gotten too reactionary, right? Things go bad and then we're like, wait a minute, now who was that? Now who was that person? Now how that person get there? Right. And so, I applaud Dallas Weekly because most people may not know unless they follow y'all really closely. Y'all have actually been following me and my political career and trying to communicate what it is that I've been doing. And even now, when I go out and speak to different groups, I ask them, do you know who your state rep is? Do you know who your state senator is? Do you know who your U.S. rep is, your U.S. senators, right? And so, I don't want anybody to feel any kind of way if you don't know who these people are. But I am asking, at a very minimum, for everyone to do their research. A quick Google research will tell you, or quick Google search will tell you who it is that represents you. And that's kind of the first step, finding out who is that person. Because the reality is that my $600 that I make a month as it relates to being a state rep, that is your tax dollars, right? Mm-hmm. And so I work for you. And it should not be a situation where you don't know who your employee is or you don't know what your employee is doing. And so, you really need to take this attitude of these people serve only because I allow them to serve. And right. If they stop serving me, then it's time for me to get somebody else new. And we definitely have a few people that need to be fired. Let's not get it twisted, right? We can start with the governor, but that's a whole other issue. So, it's important not for you just to know who the governor is, not for you just to know our lieutenant governor is terrible. And a lot of people don't know who he is and they don't understand how much power exists there. Right. But it matters on every level, because right now what we're seeing is an assault that has started really from the top on down. But now our only protections are going to be on the local level. Like I said, knowing who your DA is, knowing whether or not he is going to prosecute women for abortions. It's my understanding that our DA Creuzot, has taken the position that he will not prosecute a woman for abortion. Let me be clear. While abortions are not illegal per se on today, that is supposed to go into effect 30 days from when the actual judgment of the Supreme Court comes down. I'm assuming the actual hard copy judgment will be down. Either it's already down or it's coming down in a few days. 30 days from that day, it will then be a second-degree felony. The same level of punishment that you see if you go out and shoot somebody or if you go out and rob somebody. That is what you will be facing. Whether you are a child or an adult, it is a second-degree felony. And so the question is, how will your DA go about dealing with these kind of cases? Well, we've got a DA that has taken a stance that he's not going to prosecute them, and he has that power that is within his discretion. Mm-hmm. And so now you understand why it's important not only to know who is running to become president, but also know locally who is going to be your DA, who are going to be your judges, because maybe you've got a bad DA, right? But maybe you'll have a creative judge. So it's important that you do the research now. And it really doesn't take a lot to find out what is it that these people stand for and make an informed decision.
Absolutely. And I just want to remind people that are listening that, Texas is a very large state. So We don't have a whole lot of DA Cruzos out here. So I would personally say kudos to him. But just to let people know again, like there are so many representatives and people to vote for within the state of Texas. So that's why it's important on every level that you pay attention to who is representing you. Because like you just mentioned before, your tax dollars are literally paying for them to do their jobs. I want to swing on and keep the conversation political to talk about Texas Senator John Cornyn just recently tweeted that SCOTUS should now focus on Plessy versus Ferguson and Brown versus the Board of Education. I want you to let our audience know a little bit about what those two cases actually mean, and then what are your specific thoughts to those cases?
All right. So Brown versus Board of Education was all about overturning this separate but equal, right? So it's all about segregation. And so this idea that, historically, once again, a time that I know nothing about, but definitely my parents and my parents' age group, they know about this time where the Black folk went to one school and the white folk went to another school.
Right.
And so, there's been all of this hoopla about what Cornyn meant. I don't know what he meant, so I will give both sides. But what I will say is that Senator Cornyn used to sit on our Supreme Court here in the state of Texas. And what most people don't understand about our jurist is we have our trial court judges, which if anybody knows a judge's name, it's probably the trial court judges. People typically don't know the names of our appellate court justices and our Supreme Court justices. And so we have them on the state level, just like we have them on the federal level. And what's interesting is that our appellate judges, they are charged with writing opinions. And so the majority of the work that they do is actually written work, right? It's not like our trial judges that kind of sit there in the moment, call balls and strikes and say whether or not something's objectionable or not, and that kind of thing, right? So the idea that he cannot better communicate what he believes is astounding to me, that they are attempting to say that as a trained lawyer and former Texas Supreme Court justice, that he doesn't have better communication skills is kind of appalling. But basically, he's arguing, allegedly, they're saying, well, what he was trying to say was Plessy was overturned by Brown versus Board of Education, and that had been the law of the land for over 50 years by the time that it was overturned. And so basically, he supposedly was trying to troll former President Obama when President Obama was like, how do you get rid of precedents like this? And supposedly he was trying to say it happened before. Now, he didn't do all of that. He did not do all of that in his tweet. And I'm sorry, but he should know how to do all of that. So the issue that we have here is that it looked like this tweet was doing a lot of what seemingly some other conservatives are doing, like, yes, now go after everything, right? I mean, literally, I was just looking at something that talked about the Republican platform going forward from their most recent convention that they had down in Houston. And they supposedly were like, we need to get rid of the Voting Rights Act, which we knew they were trying to do that. The Voting Rights Act, without it, I probably would not have a seat or potentially have a seat in Congress, right? And so the idea of majority minority districts and things like that, those all were born out of the Voting Rights Act. And so what we have is these folk that recognize, especially after this most recent census where the Anglo population has decreased for the first time in history, they are scared, right? We just saw that there was that video that came out of that Republican candidate who's backed by Trump, who talks about, yes, now we can grow our white race or whatever.
Right.
That she got it wrong or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's what this is about. Like, it's like shut down the borders because wait a minute, there's too many people that don't look like us that are coming in. It's like, wait a minute, these abortions, while they try to say the face of abortions is black and brown, the reality is that it's a lot of white faces, okay? Right. So they're missing out on their white babies as well. And so we just have this party that seemingly has been taken over by white supremacists. And these white supremacists are now trying to take us back into the pre-civil rights movement time period when we still haven't fully attained what I would consider to be freedom in this country in the first place. But for them, whatever it is we have attained is a little too uncomfortable for them. And so this is what we're dealing with. And for those that slept on the importance of John Cornyn's last election, I hope you wake up now, right? We've got Cruz coming up in 2 years. And one of the things that I've been complaining about is that we're going to wait to the last minute to have a candidate. We're already behind. People don't understand how expensive these races are. Just so that people have some concept of the idea of how much it costs to run one of these races. Texas is one of the largest states in the country. We have over 30 million people. How do you communicate to 30 million people? 30 million people don't all get online, don't all listen to the same radio stations, don't all watch the same TV stations, don't all, do social media. So you've got to communicate in all these different ways, whether it's mail, whether it's text messaging, whether it's emails. You've got to do so much, right? So my campaign overall that is not done just yet, there was over $3 million spent just in my campaign for a race that had 766,000 constituents. That, just think about that. And I'm still not done, right? Like, my team is like, you got to get back to raising money because you got to get over November. We can't take it for granted. And so it costs a lot of money. And so what I also want to impress upon people is it's bigger than just going to vote. You've got to do your research. You've got to go vote. You've got to tell somebody else to go vote. And honestly, you need to volunteer and or give money, because you can have the greatest candidate on the face of the planet, but if no one else has the ability to learn about this candidate because they're lacking in resources, whether it's the manpower or whether it's the money so you can get the manpower, then that candidate goes nowhere. And sadly enough, that's where we end up a lot of times, is that the people that would really be for us, they don't have the resources so that more people can learn about them.
Yeah. And so I think that's the message and how we fight back, is that you just have to get involved. Like, even if you think that you can't do anything, but it's like, pay attention, vote, volunteer, put your time in, because that makes the biggest impact. At least I believe that's what you're trying to say. I don't want to speak for you, but
no, that's absolutely right. I mean, I don't know how many people have researched Cornyn. I really don't. He's been a senator for some time, right? And now he's made this statement, which, who knows how he meant it, what he meant. I know that he had the ability to better communicate if he did not mean anything sinister. But I think that with the fact that there's so many people in that party that are now trying to undo some of the rights in which our forefathers fought and died for, it seems on brand that that's potentially what the senator was saying.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice, just me personally, a lot are coming out the dust, if you will. And it's shocking just how blatant they are, or let me just say this, all the misstatements that are happening right now, like you mentioned before with the other representative during the Trump rally. So I think that I just want our audience to take note of all the things that you're saying in ways that we can fight back. I don't want people to feel defeated and hopeless. When we literally have things in place, we just have to enact in them. And Jasmine, I just have one final question for you. It is a well-known fact that this overturn will marginally affect Black and poor women, and you specifically, represent people in your district that are Black and Hispanic. And so, do you have anything that you want to say directly to your constituents?
Yeah, it's interesting how often I get asked this question, and so, this is definitely a game of socioeconomics, right? Because those that have the means will be able to have access to abortion care.
Right.
End of story. Those that don't have the means won't be able to have the same equal access, which is why I absolutely just deplore this decision, because Roe v. Wade really just excuse me,
Mhm.
basically said on the federal level, sorry, that you don't have these protections. And therefore states can decide. But I think that it is a federal issue because you're going to have people crossing state lines.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Okay, I think it's gone. Maybe not. I'm on my last day of COVID.
Oh, first of all, yeah, I just want to let the audience know that Jasmine Crockett does have COVID. She's in recovery. She's in her final days of quarantine. But I also want to say that the air quality is trash out here. So I have been coughing just like that. I don't even have COVID. I have an inhaler now. So it's just the way of the world right now. So take your time, Jasmine. I completely understand because I sounded like that this morning, probably.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I get it.
I haven't even coughed this entire time. That's the crazy part.
I know. And the last question.
No, I mean, even in my COVID, I haven't really been.
Oh, wow.
But long story short, you know, as a Black woman who is of childbearing age, I take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, this isn't theoretical for me. I will be fighting for those women in my district.
Yeah.
That are trusting me, even when they're asleep, even when they're not paying attention. I will be very transparent about these issues and how I give up.
Oh, it's all good. I think it's clear as day, though, Jasmine, where you stand. Jasmine, I just want to thank you so much for joining Dallas Weekly today and giving us your insight as to what Roe v. Wade, the overturn that happened this past Friday in the Supreme Court, means for your constituents, for women across Texas, for women across the nation. And more importantly, I appreciate your insight as to what we can do about it. I think the one thing I want our audience to take away, and especially, like I said, women across the state of Texas to understand, is that we have an opportunity to fight back. We just have to really get involved and we have to pay attention. So, Jasmine, I was going to say this before anyway. I know that you are overcoming COVID, so I just want to wish you a speedy recovery. Please go get some green tea in your system with some honey and some lemon. That usually works for me. And thank you again for your time. And Dallas Weekly audience, thank you again for joining us. And if you have anything else, please let us know. And we are here to give you the answers that you need. Jasmine, just want to thank you finally again for joining me today.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. Please recover. And we wish you the best. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Take care.